Today's video is going to be about chess openings and how to approach them. It does not matter what your level is, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or an advanced player, you're definitely going to learn something from this video. So, what is an opening? An opening is the first few moves that are played in chess. Your opponent can decide to play a move like e4 or d4, and you have to react differently to a move that your opponent plays with a different move. You have to react differently to different moves that are being played. You can't play the same thing against everything. It doesn't work like this. If let's say you play e4 as a first move and your opponent decides to play the Sicilian defense against you, then you have to know the moves that to react against this opening, play knight f3 and d4. But what if your opponent, after this move, decides to play the Caro-Kann defense? Now you can't play the same way. Now you have to know that you have to take the center very quickly. He's going to play d5. You basically need to think move by move and react differently considering what your opponent is trying to do and surprise you, etc. Chess is like a war on a chessboard for some people. And they're going to try some different things against you. For instance, on e4 and you go e5, they're going to try the king's gambit against you. A gambit is when you sacrifice a pawn, but the reason why you do this is it allows you to develop your pieces very fast, much faster than your opponent, but at the cost of a pawn. So they can decide to play this, or they can go with e4, e5 and play knight c3, for instance. And on knight f6, decide to go with the Vienna gambit. That's another gambit. If they play d4 as the first move and you respond with d5, they can go with the queen's gambit. Okay, not the seri. The actual opening exists. You have to know how to react to your opponent after each move. And openings are being studied by grandmasters, by the best players in the world. They are well known and they are recorded on a database, okay, where all the games are kept. And this is what you can do. For instance, once you decide, you have to make a decision. Okay, I want to be playing e4 as a first move. And if my opponent plays e5, now I'm going to attack his pawn. And I'm going to use the golden rules of chess, which is developing the two knights first, for instance, like this, and play the four knights opening. And then I'm going to develop the bishop, take the center and castle, put my king safe because this is the golden rules of chess. But then you have some guys that will not allow you this, and when you do this, they're going to go with the Scandinavian opening against you. They're not going to let you play whatever you want, like you wanted to play knight f3 against e5. Now you can't anymore because obviously you're going to lose a pawn. Okay? Then you have what we call novelties. Novelties are moves that have never been played in history. You have good ones and you have bad ones, right? If, for instance, you go like this, and your opponent plays d5 and you go bishop h6, maybe it has never been played in history, but you're just hanging a piece, so it's a bad novelty. But sometimes some players found moves at move 20, move 25, and sometimes even before, where this move has never been played, and people flock into this direction after in tournaments, and they're like, because if you don't know a novelty, let's say you have a game tomorrow that you have to play, but a novelty has been created a week ago and you don't know about it, but your opponent does, well, he's going to play this against you and crush you. Okay, so top players have to stay up to date with the new moves that appeared recently in the last month or so. And the way to do this is to use what we call, I'm going to use it here, what we call databases. And you have a pricey software, like I said, that is expensive, that is called ChessBase, and it looks like this. Let's say you say, okay, I want to play e4. Look how many games are with the move c5. c5, which is the Sicilian. 500,000 games. So the Sicilian is the most popular opening. The best way to apparently respond to e4 is to play the Sicilian defense. Now, you look at this and you're like, okay, what is the win rate here? 53% playing knight f3, more than 400,000 games, and white gets a 53% win rate, okay, playing this move, knight f3. But sometimes what you can do is, if you want to be sneaky, you don't have to play the most common moves. You have to go down in the variation and you say, okay, knight c6 has a 54% win rate, but knight f6 as well, and has a lot less games, like 3,669 for instance. So I could try with black to play knight f6 and try to see how my opponent can react. And then you can look at the games that are being played. For instance, you see that with black, actually Lee played this, okay, knight f6. The best move to react is to push the pawn on e5, okay, and now you're like, okay, now I have to be careful. I can't play knight g4, knight e4, knight g8 because it's only one game and people got crushed. So the main move here to play, because everybody does it, and you want to play the move that a grandmaster plays because he has studied it. So you go with knight d5, 2040 games. And here, what should I play? So white is going to be like, okay, the best move here is going to be something like, maybe I should try something like g3 because he has a 56% win rate. But it's only 117 games, so I can go a little bit higher. And I can see 55% win rate is d4, for instance. And I can study this, d4. Apparently there is only one way to respond to it, c take d4, etc. And you go like this. If, for instance, you play an opening, let's say something a little bit more rare, and you go d4 and your opponent respond with d5, and you go with the Levitsky attack, you see how we had 500,000 games with the Sicilian. Now we only have 8,000 games. Not more than this, 8,000 games. And if your opponent starts playing something weird like c5, now it's only very few games, like 1,000 that are being played that you can analyze. So this is what you can do. You can actually decide to go, yeah, this is what most people are playing, so usually it's the best moves. But sometimes there is a trade-off between the best moves that everybody knows, and you can go down and be like, you know what, I'm going to surprise my opponent, play something that is a little bit less common, but then I'm going to know this variation and he's not going to know it. So where, you know, he's not going to be in known territory and I'm going to crush him because of this. So there is the surprise effect. Okay. So now we're going to review one subscriber who's called Anthony, who's from Poland. He's 1416 daily, as you can see. He does a lot of puzzles, 2,945 puzzles. That's really good. There is one thing that I don't like to see is that he plays in bullet, because bullet is not chess. And usually if you play 1 minute games, but then you translate into 5 minutes, 15 minutes games, you're still going to play very fast, much faster than you should. And this is the problem here. That's why you shouldn't play bullet, because your brain now is used to like reacting, you know, within a second to moves. So it destroys your levels. I think you should play way more 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes games or daily games. This makes you improve. One thing as well, you need to analyze the games you lose. Most people don't analyze the games they only analyze the games that they think they have a brilliant move. They don't analyze, so the ones that they won. They don't analyze the losses. You're going to learn much more from the losses. Because I see, for instance, let's go in his games, okay? And let's go to his stats here. Let's go, for instance, for Blitz games. Let's go all time. He has a 49% win rate with white. Could be a little bit better. Maybe a little bit above 50 would be better. So maybe to see what is happening there. And a 48% with black. So this is good. This is really close. These statistics, I like to see this. Okay, that's pretty decent. Now look at the review. You see this thing? You could actually click and review your game. If this player, Anthony, would have reviewed his games, we would see a result here that appear. He didn't. Let's see if he ever does it. Look, he only reviewed a game that he won here. This is the thing. That's the first thing that I see. You have to review the games that you lose, not the ones that you won, because you're proud of you and you're trying to see if you got a brilliant and also what kind of ELO you played at. Okay? Another one. He won. Another one. He won. This is the problem. Okay, we have one game here that he decided to press on the review that he lost. But you see way more games where he was actually winning. Okay? Now, let's explore this. We have the Explorer that you can use. He usually plays e4. We see 600 and something games. And now we're going to try to see, first of all, the first problem that I see. If you're an amateur, why would you study e4, d4, knight f3, g3, b3? No, try to specialize in one type of opening. You don't have to play all of them. Okay? And the more you will play an opening, the more you will know the traps, the tricks of that opening, and you'll play it better. So way better to just focus on one opening. Apparently, he's playing better from the games that we have. He has a 59% win rate with d4 here. With d4, not with e4. So I would look at this. Maybe the positions with d4, with this move, are actually better for Anthony, and he should be focusing on d4. It's possible. For instance, when people play d5 against him, he has a 60% win rate. When they play e6, a 67%. But then, when they play knight f6, but it's very little games. He has 37%, and he decides to play the London, usually, and he has a bad result against the London. Should you play the London? If you really want to play the London, maybe you should try to work and see, okay, what is the issue with it, you know? Also, when you play e4, for instance, I would look straight away. What is my worst performance that I have? It looks like c6. You only win 36% of the time when people play the Caro-Kann against you. Okay, I would be like, all right, I have to do something against this. So I play d4, d5, and now the advanced variation, okay? And now the worst statistic that I have is when people play c5 straight away. And this is how you decide to focus on this. Okay, so I definitely have a problem with c5. I only score 35%, 37%. Then I have to study this. So let's see what happened in his game. Knight c6, knight f3 is pretty normal. Bishop g4, bishop b5 is okay. In this variation, it's my favorite opening, by the way, the Caro-Kann with black. And here he went, for instance, b4, which is perfectly fine in this opening. Knight g7, and now bishop b2. Okay, so this is the first problem. I mean, this wasn't attacked because this is pinned. And putting the bishop here is actually blocked by your own pawn. And I'm sure that there is a mistake that will happen very quickly after this. So you went bishop b2. Instead of bishop b2, for instance, here you can just sustain your pawn structure. It's way better like this. And the bishop most likely is better on g5, for instance. So bishop b2. And on this, where is the game? a6. And now he exchanged. Okay. So you see why giving the bishop pair against this knight, especially he's going to take with the knight, so he doesn't achieve much. And you had an amazing square. Whenever he plays like this a6, and you have a pawn on c5 that is controlling this, you could just play this. You still keep the pin here. So that was better. But how did it go in the game? How did it go in the game? Bishop takes, knight takes, queen e2. I kind of like it. Ooh, and now a3. And now this is the problem. So this guy attacked the pawn structure and you decided to just give a pawn. Okay, so that you have to be careful and how to deal with this kind of pawn structures, because now your opponent, all he has to do is just take, and take with the bishop. And of course, black is much better. So you see, you have to know how to deal with these positions where you have a pawn majority versus 2, 3 versus 2 like this. Okay, and analyze like this. So, and you see, for instance, we understood very quickly for Anthony. Okay, he has a problem with the Caro-Kann. And he has a problem with the Caro-Kann when people play c5 against him. So now you go and you pull the chess base. Let's have a look. e4, c6, d4, d5, and on e5, here, when my opponent plays c5, look what happens. Your opponent against you play a sub-variation that is c5. And you see that on c5, you played the main move, which is played with a 57%. You played the best move. Your opponent played knight c6, which is a good move, and you play knight f3. And he went bishop g4, which is the best move. And now you went bishop b5. So the best move here for white, I look at this and I'm like, oh, 61% win rate with this move c3, pushing this pawn. It would have been better. And then to be able to push actually like this and to have a nice pawn structure instead of playing the bishop on b5. Okay, so using this kind of databases allows you to just correct your openings, find the best moves grandmasters played. And as you can see, this position with c3 has been played by super top players: Topalov, Svidler, Peter Leko, Fedoseev, Ponomaryov. Amazing players. Okay, so you know, because these guys played c3 here, okay, I'm gonna incorporate this in my game. This is what I'm gonna do. I now want to show you with my games to try to see what are my flaws and how I would do it. For instance, in this page, we see I played 7,000 games. 1,582 puzzles. I didn't do enough puzzles. I should do more puzzles. That's what I see straight away. Now, in terms of statistics, I would click here, statistics, and I only play Blitz. So, mostly Blitz. The others, I just don't play. Actually, it's just when I give lessons and stuff like this. So the ratings are all over the place. Let's have a look. Well, let's take all time. So I'm 2369 right now. My highest rating was 2640. So obviously I went down because I didn't work as much. You know, I have a day job. So, but there is something that is alarming straight away that I see. And actually doing this video, I noticed because I wasn't looking at it. And that's why it's important to look at statistics. I'm only winning 44% with white. And 49 with black, which is perfect. I played the Caro-Kann. I played the King's Indian versus D4. So, and I was like, why 44%? Let's go to the Explorer and let's try to find out why. Let's go, you do this and you do my games with white. And I play D4. You see that I play D4 and I have 48% win rate. The reason is the opening choice. Sometimes it's your opening choice that is the problem. Your opening just doesn't give you enough edge to be able to win against your opponent. It just doesn't bring enough, you know, nice positions for you. So here, when my opponent plays knight f6, look at this, 46%. Because I always play the Trompowsky attack. I always play bishop g5. And I know the problem is I play people at 23, 24, 2500. At that level, the Trompowsky doesn't yield good results. We can go to the database. Let's go back for a second. And we can enter the Trompowsky and we can see in the Grandmaster database, I would be like this. Okay, are my results actually okay or not? When the guy plays this and I go bishop g5, actually, I could do much better because the win rate is not crazy, but there is a move against knight e4 here that is 54% win rate. But I'm only getting what, like 44, 45%. So that's not good. And I need to work on it. D5, E6, C5 is only 50, 51, 52%. Okay? But clearly, first of all, it's an opening choice, but I see that I can do much better, which means I must basically make a lot of mistakes when I play this opening. For instance, when my opponent plays E6, I see that I have a 60% win rate. Am I going to work this first? No, I'm not going to work it. I'm going to look, okay, which one is the one that I have the worst possible result? It seems like G6. G6 is a problem. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to look at the games with G6. When my opponent does this, taking has a 57% win rate for white. It looks, and also very good players actually play it. I see. Here, even Nakamura actually played it. Moisenko. So, actually taking on f6 doesn't seem to be the problem. Now they're going to take, this is the only move. And now I usually go e3. And I'm like, yeah, e3 is a good move, but I see that c4 is yielding 62%. So should I play c4 here? Straight away? Is it better? Now I'm going to check. Do we have good players actually playing c4? Yeah, we do. And we go Moisenko. You see a lot of 2700, 2800 players. Yeah? So I know c4 is a decent move. I'm not going to take a move that is played by an 1800. I'm going to take moves that are played by the best players. So for instance, I would be like, okay, this move c4, I'm going to incorporate this in my game and try to improve my opening. This is how you do it. With every opening, and I know it's a lot. That's the reason why you shouldn't play so many openings. Already with one, you see how much work there is that needs to be done to get the best results. Okay? So yeah, I think that's enough. That's enough content for you to go and start working your games by yourself. The reason why I didn't pick more subscribers who volunteer to be in the video is because on chess.com, the Explorer doesn't work.